A wealthy man weds a fast food server as part of a wager, only to find himself taken aback when Blake Harrison exuded an unwavering confidence that filled the room. As the leader of a major tech company in the United States, he amassed success and wealth in a way that was truly unparalleled. At 35, his life appeared flawless, filled with opulent mansions, sleek sports cars, and an endless stream of admirers eager to sing his praises. For Blake, life unfolded as a strategic contest of dominance and influence, a contest he consistently triumphed in. On a Saturday afternoon, Blake found himself spending time with friends in an unexpected setting for someone of his standing, the local McDonald's. It was a twist of fate, a means to amuse themselves by feigning a mundane existence. Gathered at a table in the dimly lit corner of the restaurant, his friends engaged in light banter, yet once again, Blake took the lead in the discussion. "You've accomplished everything, Blake," remarked Caleb Turner, one of his oldest friends, as he took a bite of his burger. "You've amassed a fortune and charmed everyone in your path. Yet I question your chances in this upcoming wager." Blake lifted an eyebrow, curiosity piqued. "I am all ears." Caleb smiled, evidently having orchestrated his challenge. "I doubt you could find a woman completely disconnected from our reality to marry. And I'm not referring to models or businesswomen. I'm discussing an individual quite unremarkable." Blake's brow furrowed while the others shared knowing smiles. "What do you mean by commonplace?" "I mean," Caleb said, subtly gesturing towards a waitress tidying up a table close by, "I doubt you could ever charm and wed someone like her. The single mother, the server at this McDonald's. Show me how you can weave someone like her into the fabric of your reality." Blake turned his attention to where Caleb was looking. The waitress involved was Rachel Miller, a 28-year-old who had been employed at McDonald's for some time to provide for her 5-year-old daughter, Chloe. Rachel maintained a calm demeanor and a strong work ethic, never allowing the pressures of challenging clients or the demanding life of a single mother to impact her resolve. To the majority in Blake's circle, she likely went unnoticed. "You expect me to marry the waitress?" Blake inquired, his voice laced with incredulity and a touch of humor. "Precisely. If you can pull it off, I'll hand you $2 million. Free from contracts, free from schemes. It must be a genuine marriage," Caleb declared, his eyes sparkling with excitement at the challenge. $2 million was mere pocket change for Blake, yet the allure of the challenge captivated him. Blake Harrison always accepted a challenge. For him, it wasn't merely about the financial gain. It was about the thrill of victory. And Rachel, leading a life so different from his own, appeared to be the ideal chance for yet another triumph. $2 million, Blake grinned, lifting his soda cup in a cheerful toast. "This will be a breeze. Prepare the check, Caleb, as victory is on my horizon." His friends chuckled, certain they were observing the dawn of yet another victory for the indomitable Blake Harrison. Deep within, Blake experienced a fresh wave of exhilaration. Rachel presented a unique kind of challenge, and he thrived on challenges. Blake observed Rachel with keen interest as she tidied up the tables. Her light brown hair was pulled back into a ponytail, and her face was free of any noticeable makeup. Her eyes held a captivating blend of fatigue and strength that drew him in. It was evident she put in great effort to maintain the course of her life. As she came closer to collect the discarded cups, Blake seized the opportunity to act. "Is it Rachel?" She cast a fleeting look in his direction, her face betraying no emotion. "Absolutely. How may I assist you today?" "You can call me Blake," he said, a confident smile playing on his lips. "I don't believe we've crossed paths in the past." Rachel's eyes widened, taken aback by the comment. "I've been here for months, and you probably didn't even notice," he said with a chuckle, shaking his head. "Perhaps not, but that shift's starting now. Would you like to meet for a coffee sometime?" She arched an eyebrow, unmistakably doubtful. "Apologies, I'm currently engaged in my work." Blake persevered, maintaining his cheerful demeanor. "Not at this moment, certainly, but you do have to take a day off, don't you? We might engage in a brief conversation." Rachel fixed her gaze on him for a brief moment before responding, "I need to get back to work, and with that, she turned and walked away. Blake experienced a surge of irritation. Her reaction was not what he had anticipated, yet it fueled his determination to put in even more effort. Rachel stood apart from the other women he typically captivated with mere phrases. Her resistance intrigued him, and Blake welcomed the opportunity to confront it head-on. As she went back to gather more empty cups and dispose of them, he maintained his gaze on her. "I am determined, Rachel. You'll discover that soon enough. I'll persist in my inquiries until you agree." She offered him a courteous smile, seemingly untouched by his allure. "Wishing you the best with that endeavor." That response only fueled his determination further. What began as a light-hearted wager among companions now carried a weight of personal significance. Blake Harrison had a knack for getting his way, and he was resolute in his pursuit of Rachel, just as he had triumphed in every wager that came before. As Caleb and the others completed their meals, Blake cast a final look at Rachel before departing. He understood that when they met again, he would approach her with greater clarity. He knew one undeniable truth. His charm was irresistible, and Rachel Miller would soon find herself no exception to that rule. Blake Harrison had always embraced a challenge, particularly when Caleb upped the stakes to $2 million. This transcended mere financial gain. It was fundamentally about honor. He was determined to win over Rachel Miller, the McDonald's waitress, to accept his invitation and ultimately become his wife. As the days went by, Blake found himself increasingly fixated on his objective. Deep down, he understood the wager lacked depth, yet the thought of rejection stung his pride. Let's enjoy ourselves with those who merely skim through the comments. They just won't understand. Leave a comment with McDonald's. Only those who have journeyed to this point will truly comprehend. On the subsequent Tuesday, Blake made his way back to McDonald's at the same hour. He observed Rachel as she engaged with the other customers. She exhibited a high level of professionalism, maintaining her focus and efficiency at all times. Her seriousness held a captivating allure for him. It was likely the very thing that set her apart from the women he typically encountered. Rachel appeared resilient, competent, and utterly indifferent to whatever he presented. Blake had grown accustomed to women seeking to captivate him or gain his notice. However, Rachel? She appeared to be unconcerned about everything. As Rachel approached his table to take his order, he greeted her with a self-assured smile. "Hello, Rachel. I had the impression that you might be looking forward to our next meeting." Her eyebrows shot up, clearly betraying her astonishment. "I had no idea you visited this place so frequently." "Well, I suppose I'll make it a point to visit more frequently," he remarked with a hint of mischief. "Indeed, exceptional service and everything that comes with it." Rachel cast him a doubtful glance and noted his order with a quick scribble. Just as she was about to depart, Blake resolved to make one final attempt. "What do you think about that coffee?" He insisted it was simply a way for us to become more acquainted. She regarded him for a moment, visibly irritated by his unwavering determination, yet she inhaled deeply. "I truly value your effort, but my schedule is quite packed right now. My life is too full for casual meetups." Blake understood that maintaining a laid-back demeanor would only drive her further away. Adjusting his approach, he softened his voice and remarked, "I understand that you're occupied. I assure you, my intention is not to complicate your life. I simply wish to understand you more deeply." She appeared poised to reject him once more, yet the steady and earnest look in Blake's eyes caused her to pause. At last, Rachel released a soft sigh and consented. "Sure thing, Blake, but let's keep it brief over coffee. I have little time for anything beyond that." It was a step forward. For Blake, that sufficed for the moment. He merely required a slight opportunity to set his scheme in motion. And now he possessed one. On that very afternoon, they convened at a quaint cafe close by. Rachel showed up punctually, clad in her work uniform and clearly uneasy about the circumstances. Blake, in contrast, exuded a sense of calm confidence. In a secluded corner of the cafe, they occupied a table, distanced from the bustling crowd. He observed her as she casually lifted the menu, her lack of enthusiasm evident. So Rachel, how would you describe your life? What is the duration of your employment there? He inquired, attempting to convey a sense of warmth. She shrugged, maintaining a measured tone. Several years. This is the way I provide for my daughter, Chloe. I put in a great deal of effort, but this is what I can manage at the moment. Blake nodded, sensing a hint of unfamiliarity for the first time. He was accustomed to discussions revolving around investments, galas, and lavish getaways, yet the realization that someone inhabited such a contrasting reality took him aback. For Blake, work was an endeavor he orchestrated from a desk. For Rachel, it was her beacon of hope. Are you available at any point? He inquired, intrigued by her ability to juggle it all. She released a laugh devoid of humor. Honestly, not a great deal. In my free time, I enjoy spending moments with my daughter. That occupies the majority of my time. What about you? What tale do you have to share, Blake? He smiled, aware that his response could seem far away to her. I hold the position of CEO at a technology firm. I put in a lot of hours as well, but, my way of life is somewhat distinct. Rachel's response was not what he had anticipated. She merely nodded, as though she had already come to that conclusion. I had that impression. I must admit, your invitation caught me off guard. Individuals such as yourself typically don't associate with those like myself. Her honesty had a way of unsettling him. What makes you think that? Do you believe that everyone is identical? Blake inquired, feeling a sense of unease. For the first time, Rachel met his gaze head-on. I don't believe that everyone is identical. I struggle to grasp why a prosperous, accomplished individual would be interested in someone like me. Anyone from your circle could be selected. Blake sensed a trap in her question. He was unable to reveal the truth about the wager, so he provided the only response he had at his disposal. Perhaps that's precisely what captivates my attention regarding you, Rachel. You exist outside of that realm, and that's something unusual for me. Rachel exhaled deeply, her discomfort evident. Listen, Blake, I need to be straightforward with you. My main focus is my daughter. She holds immense significance in my life, and my presence here is a testament to my belief in your sincerity. However, I lack the time for frivolities. He nodded, and for a fleeting instant, he sensed a change stirring inside him. Despite his dedication to the wager, he couldn't ignore the intriguing challenge that Rachel presented to him. She was genuine, candid, and unlike anyone he had encountered before. I see what you mean, Rachel, he replied gently. I assure you this is straightforward and sincere. Rachel observed him again, then completed her coffee and rose to her feet. It was just a brief coffee, as I mentioned. Blake beamed. Shall we consider doing this again in the future? How about we keep it a bit more casual next time? She gazed at him, weighing the proposition. After a brief pause, she offered a slight nod. Perhaps. As she strolled away, Blake lingered, observing her fade into the distance through the cafe entrance. He had embarked on a journey, and with each meeting, his intrigue about her deepened. Blake was accustomed to reaching his objectives swiftly, and with Rachel Miller, he sensed that same pressing need. Following that short coffee encounter, her presence and the heartfelt remarks regarding her daughter lingered in his thoughts. The wager with Caleb lingered in the air, yet as time went on, it seemed to transform into a mere whisper of motivation. A deeper part of him yearned to comprehend Rachel, and even he found it difficult to articulate this burgeoning attraction. In the weeks that followed, Blake began to frequent McDonald's with increasing regularity. He maintained a subtle approach, ensuring he didn't go overboard, yet he took every chance to share a few words with Rachel. Gradually, she acclimated to his presence, and their dialogues grew more intimate, delving into the nuances of their lives. One afternoon, Blake came to the conclusion that it was time to elevate the wager to new heights. He understood that maintaining a laid-back vibe with brief conversations and coffee outings would prevent Rachel from viewing their relationship as anything deeper. He had to take a daring step, an action that would clearly demonstrate his true interest. On that serene afternoon at McDonald's, while Rachel meticulously organized trays behind the counter, Blake made his way over to her. Rachel, he started, making an effort to convey genuine sincerity. I've been reflecting deeply on our relationship. This may come as a surprise, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on approaching this with earnestness. She gazed at him, perplexed, her brow knitting together. What should we take seriously? Blake inhaled deeply, aware that honesty was his most effective approach. Union. Rachel couldn't help but laugh, taken aback by the surprise proposal. Are you, for real? I hardly know you, Blake. I understand it may seem absurd, he confessed, striving to maintain his poise. But I sense that we share something extraordinary, something I've never experienced with anyone else. Perhaps it's due to the fact that you don't belong to my realm. Perhaps it's because I perceive something genuine in you, an individual who genuinely embraces a life filled with intention. She shook her head, lingering in a state of disbelief. Are you genuinely proposing marriage to someone you barely know? What sort of reality is that? Blake came to the unsettling realization that he was slipping from the reins of the situation. He realized he had to enhance his persuasiveness. I assure you, Rachel, I'm serious. I understand that my background is quite different, and this may seem strange, but my desire is to provide you and Chloe with a better life. Rachel inhaled deeply, caught in a conflict between her urge to push him away and the inexplicable pull she experienced toward him. It was difficult to fathom that a person leading such a lifestyle could truly care for her. Yet as she gazed into his eyes, a flicker of hope ignited within her. I'm not looking for a response at this moment, Blake remarked, noticing her uncertainty. Consider it for a moment. I don't want to impose, but I truly think we can find a way to make this happen. Rachel observed him closely, seeking to decipher the motives lurking beneath his statements. I'll consider it, she finally replied, turning back to her tasks, still bewildered. The days that followed were steeped in contemplation and uncertainty for Rachel. She continued to probe Blake's proposal. Ultimately, he hailed from a realm she couldn't grasp, and her existence as a single mother and waitress felt at odds with the life Blake presented. Yet, the thought of uniting with him, and the implications it might hold for her daughter, Chloe, awakened a deep feeling within her. Despite its improbability, the proposal held the promise of a future she could never achieve alone. A week later, Blake returned to McDonald's once more. He stood by, anticipation building as Rachel wrapped up her shift. When she finally emerged, he called out to her, a smile playing on his lips, blending confidence with a hint of nervousness. Rachel, have you considered what I brought up? She inhaled deeply, her demeanor solemn. Do you genuinely believe this could succeed, Blake? We hail from utterly distinct realms. I work as a waitress and have a little girl at home. She is my foremost concern, now and forever. I'm not interested in playing around. Blake nodded, retrieving a small velvet box he had meticulously arranged. As he opened it, an elegant yet understated ring emerged, glimmering beautifully in the soft glow of the night. He understood that anything overly extravagant might scare her off, so he selected something that conveyed genuine intent. Rachel, I mean it, he insisted, cradling the ring delicately in his fingers. I invite you to view this as an opportunity for us to create something collaboratively. We could offer Chloe a new path, and if you agree, I assure you I will always be there for you. Rachel felt her heart pounding in her chest. The proposal seemed almost dreamlike, yet Blake's expression was filled with such resolve and authenticity that, for a fleeting moment, she found herself believing in it. Why am I the one, Blake? Given your wealth and your circumstances, what brings you to me with this question? She inquired, her disbelief evident. Blake smiled, pondering a truth that eluded his complete understanding. Your uniqueness sets you apart from everyone I've encountered. Perhaps, for the first time, I am witnessing something genuine. She became quiet, her gaze fixed on the ring. This seems almost surreal, yet I cannot overlook the fact that I have a daughter to consider. Perhaps I'm being naive, but I'll go along with it, for Chloe's benefit. Blake inched nearer, gently sliding the ring onto her finger. I assure you, Rachel, this will be worthwhile. She let out a breath, still taken aback by her choice. Okay, Blake, I have faith in you. With that, Blake smiled, feeling a wave of relief wash over him, convinced he was inching closer to victory in the bet. For Rachel Miller, embracing Blake Harrison's marriage proposal seemed almost dreamlike, yet essential. Since the moment she embraced motherhood, every choice she made revolved around Chloe's happiness and health. With this courageous move, her objective became unmistakable: to ensure a more secure future for her daughter. The shift into this new existence occurred swiftly. Blake managed every detail with his characteristic precision, making certain that Rachel and Chloe settled into his mansion seamlessly. The residence was magnificent, boasting soaring ceilings, opulent furnishings, and all that Rachel had never dared to envision. Every corner radiated affluence, yet to her, it seemed devoid of warmth and character. Rachel attempted to adapt, yet the contrasts between their realms were striking. In those initial days, she experienced the sensation of being a guest in a life that belonged to someone else. Blake, while thoughtful, maintained a measured separation. He appeared truly invested in ensuring her comfort, yet his constant meetings and obligations hindered a more profound bond. Their inaugural dinner at the mansion showcased these contrasts. At a lengthy dining table, Blake occupied the head, while Rachel was seated a few places down, and Chloe found her spot nestled between them. Blake observed Chloe, feeling a blend of intrigue and discomfort. The young girl gazed about her, enchanted by the gleaming silverware and the shimmering crystal goblets. "Are you enjoying your time here, Chloe?" Blake inquired, attempting to initiate a dialogue. Chloe gave a timid nod. "Indeed, it's grand, reminiscent of a royal abode." Rachel offered a warm smile to her daughter, making an effort to keep her anchored in the moment. "Indeed, darling, but keep in mind, this is merely a space for us to reside. Our existence remains unchanged." Blake sensed the hesitation in Rachel's voice and pondered whether she felt like an outsider. He attempted to ease the atmosphere by recounting a childhood tale of getting lost on one of his family's numerous properties. Yet despite his attempts, Rachel appeared distant, as though she was still navigating her place in this unfamiliar environment. As time passed, Rachel gradually immersed herself deeper into Blake's world, uncovering its layers week by week. He was a man devoted to his craft, immersed in a whirlwind of meetings and powerful figures. In the meantime, Rachel dedicated her days to looking after Chloe, overseeing her school activities, and attempting to acclimate to their new home. Blake tried to carve out moments to connect with Rachel and Chloe amidst his meetings, yet his presence frequently seemed remote. He inquired about Chloe's daily habits and made an effort to engage in family events, yet the gap between their worlds was unmistakable. On a quiet afternoon, Rachel found herself assisting Chloe with her homework, while Blake entered the living room and observed them for a brief moment. The bond shared between mother and daughter exuded a simplicity he had never known, marked by an authentic and effortless intimacy. "Do you require assistance?" he inquired somewhat clumsily. Rachel gazed at him, taken aback. "Are you familiar with school assignments?" He chuckled softly, a smile playing on his lips as he shook his head. "I might not succeed, but I'm willing to give it a shot." Rachel smiled, and in that moment, Blake sensed a genuine bond forming between them. He settled beside them, attempting to join in on Chloe's activity, and she chuckled at his blunders while responding to the questions. That whimsical moment served as a delicate connection between their vastly contrasting realms. Yet, in light of the modest advancements, Rachel continued to harbor doubts about Blake's true motives. She understood that their union hadn't begun in the most traditional manner, yet there lingered an unspoken connection between them. Blake, conversely, found himself undergoing an unexpected internal transformation. Initially, it revolved around a sense of pride, a wager to demonstrate his ability to overcome any obstacle. However, the presence of Rachel and Chloe was causing him to ponder the true meaning behind it all. That same night, as Blake prepared for sleep, he observed Rachel perched at the edge of the bed, deep in contemplation. "What seems to be the issue?" he inquired with care. She let out a soft sigh, her gaze fixed on him. "Blake, I believe it's essential for us to clarify our purpose in this endeavor. We aren't your typical couple. Our narrative is unconventional. Despite your kindness, It seems we're attempting to mold ourselves into something that may not be meant for us. He settled next to her, gazing at her with genuine intent. I get it, Rachel, but would you trust me if I said I'm working on understanding this as well? I am determined to make this succeed. Although our beginnings weren't ideal, there's potential for us to create something meaningful together. Rachel observed him quietly, uncertain whether she could believe what he said. Blake exuded an air of perfection, yet she sensed that his motives often remained shrouded in ambiguity. Yet, in the midst of her uncertainties, she held on to the hope that, maybe, they could create something genuine. Perhaps, with time, he might come to cherish the uncomplicated existence she held dear. For now, I suppose we can simply give it a go, she remarked with a weary breath. However, I require your honesty, Blake. If this isn't genuine, if this is merely a trial, I'd prefer to conclude it now. He nodded, his demeanor grave. It's genuine, Rachel. I assure you of that. His response offered Rachel a semblance of tranquility, yet the words seemed somewhat ambiguous. Creating a shared existence was turning out to be much more intricate than she had envisioned. In that instant, she resolved to offer Blake and herself an opportunity. As the weeks unfolded, an unforeseen change began to take shape within Blake Harrison. Coexisting with Rachel and Chloe was influencing him in ways he had never anticipated. From the very beginning, he understood that this union was merely a wager, a test to demonstrate his prowess in triumphing. Yet, as he continued to share moments with Rachel and her daughter, he discovered a transformation within himself. How about we engage in a little fun with those who focus solely on the comments? They simply won't grasp it. Leave a comment with Coca-Cola. Only those who have journeyed this far will understand. Chloe's smile and Rachel's uncomplicated approach to life ignited a deep admiration within him, surpassing any connection he had previously experienced. Material accomplishments, which once held great significance, now felt hollow in contrast to the genuine passion and commitment Rachel displayed daily. Her dedication to her daughter and her ability to handle everything at home showcased a resilience he had never encountered among his peers. One evening, as they shared a meal, Blake found himself revealing more to Rachel than he ever had before. He shared stories from his childhood, reflecting on the burden of family expectations and the challenges of navigating life as a young CEO. Rachel listened with keen interest, and he sensed that, for the first time, he was free from the need to demonstrate anything. He was free to embrace his true self. He confessed, taken aback by his own openness, that he had never truly had someone to share these thoughts with. Rachel offered a gentle smile. At times, Blake, all you really need is a person who will lend an ear, someone who asks for nothing in exchange. The straightforward remark struck him deeply. He came to understand just how familiar he had become with connections rooted in self-interest, where every interaction felt like a transaction of favors, status, or dominance. Yet with Rachel, everything seemed to shift. She anticipated only sincerity from him, and that utterly caught him off guard. Blake's transformation evolved gradually. Now, he discovered himself seeking opportunities to share more time with Rachel and Chloe, cherishing the little moments in everyday life that he might have previously taken for granted. One weekend, he took them on a trip to the park, an outing that seemed routine to him, yet was a thrilling adventure for Chloe. Chloe dashed across the grassy expanse, her laughter ringing out as Blake struggled to match her pace. Rachel observed them with a gentle smile, and Blake felt himself swept away by the atmosphere. He had never experienced such a sense of buoyancy, such pure delight. In the depths of his mind, he started to ponder the true motive behind their union. The original wager had lost its significance, and he realized that his presence was no longer driven by financial gain or ego, but rather by a deep, authentic connection. Amidst the outing, Blake engaged in a sincere conversation with Rachel, while Chloe frolicked in the vicinity. Rachel, I understand that our beginning was unconventional, but I'm in the process of unraveling what I'm experiencing. She regarded him with a sense of intrigue. Could you clarify what you mean? I never imagined I would experience such a deep connection. He confessed, looking away, that the moments shared with you and Chloe had turned into the highlight of his day. It may seem unbelievable, but both of you have opened my eyes to a new perspective on life. Rachel smiled, a hint of surprise flickering across her face, yet she remained guarded. Our start may have been intricate, yet I sense a unique connection between us. Blake. However, it's essential that we maintain honesty between ourselves. If this isn't genuine, I'd prefer to stop here. Blake grasped her hand, gazing deeply into her eyes. It's genuine, Rachel. I've never felt such certainty about anything in my life. As the days morphed into months, Blake's transformation grew increasingly apparent. He began to pull away from the friends who had supported the wager and even adjusted his work hours to be at home more often. Caleb and the others observed the transformations and soon started to inquire about what was happening. During an evening meal, Caleb faced him head-on. Blake, what's happening with you? You seem to be distancing yourself from others and undergoing a significant transformation. Blake inhaled deeply, weary of the subtle jabs from his friends. I believe I'm coming to understand what truly holds significance. Caleb chuckled, filled with skepticism. Is this entirely due to the wager? I assumed it was merely a jest. Blake sensed a wave of annoyance building within him. I think you might see the humor in this, but it has lost its comedic value for me. I desire for things to come together with Rachel. Caleb observed him intently for a brief moment. Is it really that serious? Indeed, it is serious. If you can't grasp that, perhaps it's time to concentrate on your own life, Blake remarked, bringing the discussion to a close. That night signified the conclusion of his camaraderie with Caleb. Blake realized that he could no longer sustain the same friendships, and cutting ties with that social circle felt like the last connection to the shallow existence he had previously known. At that moment, he realized his desire for a genuine existence alongside Rachel and Chloe, even if it required abandoning the familiar life he had always lived. Upon his return that evening, Rachel observed a look of concern etched across his face. In the cozy confines of the living room, she absorbed his words as he revealed the profound sense of disconnection he experienced, drifting away from the things that had once held significance in his life. He expressed a sense of detachment, as if he were slowly losing touch with those around him, lamenting that all he once cherished was gradually fading from his grasp, accompanied by a heavy sigh. Rachel gently rested her hand atop his. Perhaps you are uncovering something deeper, Blake. At times, wandering off the beaten path is essential for discovering our true selves. The discussion served as the crucial impetus Blake required. For the first time, he felt prepared to abandon everything and embrace a new beginning with Rachel. He realized that with her, he had discovered not just genuine affection, but also a lifestyle that enriched him in ways he had never envisioned. The time spent with Rachel and Chloe led Blake to a myriad of revelations. The change he was experiencing was clear not only in his behavior but also in his perception of the world surrounding him. He dedicated more hours to the comfort of home, engaging in uncomplicated pursuits, and steered clear of the social scenes he previously deemed vital. Yet, on a crisp autumn morning, an unforeseen revelation surged forth, awakening memories Blake had long wished to leave behind. In the solitude of his home office, he meticulously sifted through contracts when an aged document unexpectedly drew his gaze. The piece detailed a previous acquisition by his company, focusing on a small factory that had been closed for years. As he looked at the date, echoes of those moments came flooding back. He recalled that, back then, he had commanded the factory's shutdown to reduce expenses and boost earnings. For him, it was merely a strategic choice, yet for countless individuals that choice had transformed everything. Restless, Blake plunged into the aftermath of the factory's closure, uncovering the harsh reality that hundreds of employees had been left jobless. The town housing the factory had faced economic hardships, compelling numerous families to rebuild their lives from the ground up. In those days, he focused solely on the figures, oblivious to the individuals that lay beneath them, fixated only on the potential effects on the bottom line. As he perused the report and laid eyes on the impacted town, a chilling realization dawned upon him. It was the place where Rachel grew up. With trembling hands, He started to weave the narrative and understood that the choice he had made years prior had profoundly impacted her life. That was the reason Rachel found herself at McDonald's, grappling with the challenges of raising Chloe alone. Although it was not deliberate, he had inflicted pain upon her. The revelation rattled Blake to his core. The remainder of the day slipped away from him, his mind unable to latch onto anything but that singular thought. The realization that he bore some responsibility for Rachel and Chloe's heartbreak weighed heavily on him, filling him with guilt and regret. But how was he to convey it to her? How could he confess to being the source of such deep suffering? For days, the revelation haunted him, and the chasm between him and Rachel started to widen. She observed that he appeared aloof and lost in thought, yet Blake made an effort to conceal his inner struggles, fearful of her response to the reality he faced. Yet, he understood that the secret couldn't remain hidden indefinitely. At last, on a serene evening, Blake resolved to share all his truths with Rachel. Their presence filled the living room with a serene ambience, a tranquil moment unfolding after Chloe had drifted off to sleep. He sensed it was the perfect time. "Rachel," he started, searching for the perfect expression. "I must discuss something significant with you, something that harks back to my past." She gazed at him, taken aback by the gravity in his tone. "What is it, Blake? Has something occurred?" He inhaled deeply, and the words began to flow. "Do you recall the factory where you were employed prior to our meeting? The one that got closed down?" Rachel nodded, her expression heavy with the weight of that challenging memory. "Indeed, I recall. It was an incredibly challenging period. During my pregnancy with Chloe, I found myself navigating everything on my own." Blake averted his gaze, a sense of shame washing over him. "Rachel, it was I was the one who made the decision to shut down the factory." The words lingered, and Rachel's face transformed from bewilderment to astonishment. She blinked, attempting to grasp the weight of his words, then fixed her gaze on him, a blend of disbelief and pain reflected in her eyes. "Did you really do that?" she murmured, her voice barely holding together. "Indeed," he replied, his tone subdued and heavy with remorse. "In that moment, it was merely a strategic choice. I concentrated on the financial gains, overlooking the impact it would have on individuals. Rachel, I deeply regret what happened. Had I been aware of the consequences it would have on you, I would have chosen differently." Rachel gradually withdrew, attempting to grasp the significance of his revelation. Each challenge, every sleepless night she endured to provide for her daughter and maintain her self-respect was now intertwined with him. The sense of betrayal was nearly too much to endure. She inhaled deeply, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "So, after everything we've experienced together, are you saying that you are the reason I found myself in that predicament? The reason I had to take on the role of a waitress and struggle to provide for my daughter? So what's next, Blake? Are you really asking me to simply erase everything?" Her voice pierced through him with sharp intensity. He attempted to bridge the distance between them, yet she retreated, her gaze aflame with a mix of fury and heartbreak. "Rachel, I understand that I can't change the past, but I genuinely wish to set things straight. Please find it in your heart to forgive me." "Forgive you?" She chuckled with a hint of bitterness. "How can I find it in myself to forgive someone who shattered my life and my sense of stability, only to return as if they are some sort of savior? This feels incredibly selfish, Blake, and I'm uncertain if I can find it in myself to forgive you for this." Blake experienced a profound pain upon hearing those words, yet he recognized that he had earned them. The shadows of his past loomed large, and the cost he faced was undeniably high. He observed her rise and move toward the bedroom, each step heavy with pain and bitterness. "Rachel," he called, his voice trembling and soft. "I would go to great lengths to set this straight. Both you and Chloe hold significant importance in my life. I can't bear the thought of losing you." She paused, her gaze lingering on him for a brief moment. "Blake, your charm and grand declarations failed to sway us. I remained because I thought you were genuine, but now I realize that perhaps this is merely another one of your transactions." With that, she pivoted and stepped into the bedroom, leaving Blake solitary in the living room, enveloped by an overwhelming sense of guilt that seemed insurmountable. He understood that mere words would fall short. To regain Rachel's trust and restore their relationship, he must demonstrate, through sincere actions, that he has genuinely transformed. Following the shocking news of the factory's closure, the strain between Blake and Rachel grew increasingly intense. Rachel struggled to meet his gaze, and their exchanges, once vibrant with joy and humor, had become overshadowed by quietness and pain. Blake wandered through a fog of confusion, burdened by a heavy sense of guilt, each glance at Rachel's disappointed gaze deepening his turmoil. The following morning, Rachel found herself navigating through a storm of emotions. She attempted to mask her anguish for Chloe's benefit, maintaining her composure in front of her daughter, yet the fury and feeling of betrayal remained. The realization that Blake bore the weight of all her struggles and sacrifices lingered in her mind, an indelible mark she couldn't shake off. At this moment, it felt as though their entire connection was constructed upon a harsh twist of fate. Life in the mansion continued, yet Blake appeared deeply unsettled. He persisted in his efforts with Rachel, yet each endeavor was thwarted by an unseen barrier. Deep down, he understood the importance of allowing her the space she required. In the interim, he vowed to himself that he would seek a path to rectify the situation, not with mere words or regrets, but through genuine, impactful deeds. A few days later, at the dinner table, Blake mustered the courage to initiate a more straightforward dialogue. Sitting at the table, his voice quivering, he started, "Rachel, I realize I caused you pain, and I completely understand if forgiveness feels out of reach. But could you allow me the opportunity to demonstrate that I've transformed?" She regarded him with a frosty gaze, her eyes glimmering with a blend of hurt and righteous anger. "Are you looking for an opportunity, Blake? You have stripped away everything I held dear, and now you seek an opportunity to demonstrate your goodness? Do you really believe that's not a bit too convenient?" He inhaled deeply, struggling against the pull of hopelessness. "I understand why you're feeling hurt, and I accept that your anger is justified. However, Rachel, since our paths crossed, I've undergone a transformation. I aspire to improve, for you and for Chloe. I am committed to doing everything necessary to regain your trust." Rachel shook her head, her expression brimming with frustration. "That opportunity has passed, Blake. I opened the door to my life and my daughter's life, thinking you were unique, but ultimately you're just like all the others I've encountered." She rose from her seat, abandoning him at the table, burdened by the heavy shadows of guilt and regret. Blake understood that mere words held no power to alter the situation. He felt compelled to take further action, something that would genuinely reflect his resolve and dedication to rectifying the situation. In the days that followed, Blake arrived at a decision. He started looking for individuals who, similar to Rachel, had been impacted by the factory's shutdown. He journeyed to the town that once housed the factory, engaging with former employees, absorbing their narratives and the challenges they had endured. Confronting the aftermath of his detached choices was excruciating, yet he understood the necessity of facing the reality he had brought into existence. After listening to numerous accounts, Blake resolved to create a support fund for the factory's former employees, allocating a substantial part of his wealth to assist their families and foster new opportunities for them. He understood that this wouldn't erase the past, but it marked the beginning of his sincere dedication to transformation. Upon Blake's return home, he found Rachel still evading him, yet he was resolute in his desire to engage her in conversation. As the evening drew to a close, Rachel completed the task of tucking Chloe in for the night, while Blake lingered in the living room, anticipating her return. Upon her entrance, Blake's voice rang out, steady and composed. "Rachel, I understand you're in pain, but I must share what I've been up to. I have been striving to set things straight." She crossed her arms, a look of doubt on her face. "So, Blake, what's your strategy for addressing the past? Using funds? That won't erase your actions." He maintained his composure as he replied, "I know it won't. However, I made my way there. I engaged in conversations with the former employees, absorbed their experiences, and I'm establishing a fund to assist them in reconstructing their lives. I understand that this won't undo my actions, but it's my attempt to atone for the hurt I've inflicted. Rachel observed him quietly, taken aback by the genuine depth and dedication in his expression. Despite the wound still being fresh, she caught a fleeting glimpse of true remorse in Blake's eyes. Despite her reluctance to acknowledge it, his attempts to amend the past started to erode her resentment, revealing a subtle sense of doubt beneath. That night, while Blake lingered in the living room, Rachel made her way back to the bedroom, her heart fractured and heavy. She found it difficult to extend forgiveness at this moment, yet she couldn't overlook the sincerity in his efforts to transform. The time they had shared unveiled a facet of Blake that appeared worlds apart from the individual who had closed the factory's doors. Yet, the burden of history remained a formidable obstacle to surmount. The following day, Rachel resolved to engage him in conversation once more. She discovered him in his office, engrossed in his notes. After a brief pause, she gathered her thoughts, aware that the quest for answers was essential. Blake, she started, drawing his focus. I listened to your comments regarding the support fund. I appreciate your efforts to make amends, but I'm still struggling to grasp the situation fully. He regarded her with a solemn demeanor. Rachel, I understand that I might never earn your forgiveness, but I want you to know that I'm willing to do anything necessary. I am prepared to transform my entire existence if it means creating something genuine between us. She observed him quietly, taking in each word with intent. Despite the lingering pain, she perceived a transformed man before her. Perhaps the Blake before her was indeed undergoing a transformation. I'm uncertain about my ability to forgive you, Blake, yet perhaps, let's observe the outcome, she murmured gently. Her careful reply sparked a flicker of optimism in Blake. He understood that the journey before him would be arduous and that winning her forgiveness would not come easily, yet he was ready to confront any obstacle to demonstrate that he was worthy of another opportunity. Just as their conversation was about to unfold, the office door swung open, and in strode Caleb, sporting that familiar sarcastic grin he always had. Ah, so you both remain present, snug together? Blake furrowed his brow, taken aback by the sudden disruption. Caleb, this isn't the right moment. Caleb dismissed the palpable tension surrounding him, casting a sidelong glance at Rachel, a hint of amusement dancing in his eyes. Hey Rachel, did Blake fill you in on the huge wager? Rachel's brow furrowed in confusion as she glanced at Blake, who was suddenly engulfed by a surge of panic. Caleb, please cease. Yet Caleb chuckled, pressing on as though he hadn't listened. Blake and I placed a considerable wager on his chances of marrying you. In fact, it's $2 million. Wasn't that mentioned to you? How unfortunate. I genuinely believed that the two of you were evolving into a true couple. Rachel's face transformed, revealing a blend of disbelief and anguish. She took a step back, sensing the earth give way beneath her as she fixed her gaze on Blake, anticipating his denial. Yet his quietude spoke volumes. Blake, is that really the case? She inquired, her voice quivering. Rachel, this isn't how it was meant to unfold. Initially, it started as a wager, but I transformed. I began to genuinely invest my emotions. He attempted to convey his thoughts, yet his words resonated with emptiness. She took a step back, her eyes filled with despair. Initially, you shattered my existence with that factory, and now what? It has come to my attention that our union was merely a wager. Rachel exited the room, tears streaming down her face, and Blake realized in that instant that he could have lost everything in a single moment due to his own deceit. Rachel stepped out of the mansion, her heart in pieces. Caleb's revelation was the last drop in a well overflowing with anguish and treachery. To her, each moment shared with Blake now seemed constructed on a foundation of deception. He had not only shattered her past but had also betrayed her once more, offering false promises of love and transformation. While their marriage had merely served as a game, a wager for his amusement and ego, Blake lingered in the shadows, watching Rachel fade into the darkness, each of her steps resonating with the weight of his shortcomings. He felt an overwhelming urge to follow her, to articulate his feelings, to share how profoundly he had transformed. and that the wager had lost all significance once he genuinely understood her. Yet the words seemed feeble, unable to erase the harsh reality she had just revealed. In the days that followed, Rachel maintained her distance, dismissing every effort Blake made to reach out to her. She required space to reflect, to grasp how she had placed her faith in someone unworthy of it from the start. Her heart, still heavy from the factory's closure, now bore the sting of realizing that every tender moment from Blake might have merely been another move in a game. In that moment, Blake felt utterly shattered. The mansion, once a testament to his achievements, now resonated with emptiness, each corner reverberating with the absence of Rachel and Chloe. Each message he sent to Rachel's phone remained without a reply. He understood that an apology alone would not suffice to reconnect with her. He needed something deeper, something truly significant. Driven by a deep longing to rekindle their connection, Blake embarked on a quest to demonstrate the authenticity of his emotions. Rather than depending on wealth or influence, he chose to let go of what he valued most, his company. He understood that in order to earn a chance with Rachel and Chloe, he had to sever ties with everything that linked him to his former self. He dedicated days to silent discussions with investors and advisors, confronting inquiries and pressure, yet he remained resolute. At last, once the transactions were finalized, he was simply Blake, stripped of company and status. He aimed to demonstrate to Rachel that his existence no longer had to center on power and status, that he was ready to embark on a new beginning alongside her. Having completed the paperwork, he made his way to a friend's place, aware that Rachel and Chloe were there. He sensed the gravity of the situation and stood anxiously, anticipating her choice to engage with him. At last, she emerged at the door, her expression etched with weariness and skepticism. "Rachel, I understand if you find this hard to accept, but I have something significant to share with you," he began, his gaze drifting away from hers. "I parted ways with the company, the very foundation of my journey, where I chose to shut down the factory. I have stepped away from it." She gazed at him, taken aback and uncertain. "Blake, I'm having trouble grasping what this change entails. Do you believe that eliminating everything will make the lies vanish?" "No, Rachel, I understand this doesn't undo my actions," he said, his voice trembling. "However, I came to understand that I couldn't remain with you while still bound to that existence. Today, my focus is entirely on you and Chloe. I am ready to create something genuine, something pure, even if it means beginning anew." Rachel absorbed every word, her gaze a mix of skepticism and a flicker of optimism. She inhaled deeply, her feelings intertwined with a sense of wariness. "From the very beginning, you had countless chances to be truthful. Each vow, each expression of love seems hollow at this moment." Blake acknowledged the stark reality of her words with a nod. "I understand that I might never earn your forgiveness, but I am prepared to do everything necessary to restore your trust. Trust me, Rachel, I've transformed, and this transformation is for you, for Chloe, because I truly grasp what is important." She regarded him quietly, assessing the authenticity reflected in his expression. A piece of Rachel's heart still held affection for him, yet the weight of betrayal loomed large over her. She required some time and distance to contemplate whether she was ready to let him back into her heart. That evening, following their extensive dialogue, Rachel stepped back inside, while Blake, caught in a swirl of relief and apprehension, made his way home. He was aware that he had exerted every effort possible leading up to that point. The choice lay entirely in Rachel's hands, hinging on her capacity to forgive. In the days that followed, Blake maintained his distance, yet he still reached out to Rachel from time to time, always mindful and considerate of the space she had asked for. He refrained from applying any pressure on her. Instead, he resolved that during his wait, he would reconstruct his life based on the principles she had instilled in him: simplicity, empathy, and honesty. At long last, following weeks of contemplation, Rachel decided to make contact with him. She consented to gather for a final discussion. Sitting together, she gazed at him and said with a steady voice, "I won't pretend that your actions didn't cause me pain. I recognize your efforts, Blake, and I can see the transformation in you. However, for me, the journey to restore that trust will be a challenging and protracted endeavor. I accept that, he replied, his voice unwavering. I'm prepared to be patient for as long as necessary, because for the first time, I sense I've discovered something genuine, and I refuse to let it slip away. Rachel nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. In the face of numerous challenges, she chose to embrace the man Blake was striving to be, not for his possessions, but for the person he had become, finally demonstrating his capacity for change. Rachel found herself caught in a struggle between the affection she had grown for Blake and the burden of the pain he had inflicted. She had resolved to offer him an opportunity, yet she understood that mending trust would not come without its challenges. Since their last conversation, Blake had demonstrated both patience and sincerity, yet Rachel realized that mere gestures would not be enough for her to trust again. Each movement would be deliberate, and a single error could reverse all they had achieved. Blake recognized the importance of allowing the process to unfold at its own pace. He maintained regular communication, attended to Rachel and Chloe's minor needs, and demonstrated sincere care for both of them. Rachel observed his genuine efforts, yet the shadows of uncertainty regarding the wager and the deceit lingered in her mind. At her core, she was haunted by the thought that nothing would last. Yet another vow that Blake would inevitably fail to uphold. Several weeks later, Blake extended an invitation to Rachel and Chloe for an outing to a park he had recently found close to the city. He envisioned a modest picnic, featuring dishes he had crafted with care, knowing it would resonate with Rachel's tastes. Upon their arrival, Rachel found herself taken aback by the unpretentiousness of the moment, a stark contrast to the lavishness she had experienced with Blake. Witnessing this more vulnerable aspect of him offered a fresh outlook, and for a fleeting instant, she felt a sense of relief, nearly overlooking the wounds. While Chloe dashed about, joyfully engaging with the ball, Blake and Rachel settled on a bench, observing her every move. "Thank you for being here," he remarked, shattering the stillness. "I appreciate your patience with me." She offered a subtle smile, her caution evident. "I'm simply trying to grasp what has truly shifted, Blake, but I must confess, ever since you let go of the company, I've witnessed a facet of you that was previously unknown to me." Blake nodded, his gaze locked onto Chloe as she immersed herself in play. "I understand that this world, filled with its wealth and power struggles, has not brought me true happiness. Your presence, along with Chloe's, has introduced something genuine into my existence. I've come to realize that my needs for happiness are far simpler than I once thought." As Rachel absorbed the words, she gradually sensed the burdens of her pain begin to lift. The sincerity in Blake's words resonated deeply, and she began to entertain the possibility that, perhaps, he was being honest this time. On the outing, Blake proposed a light-hearted guessing game to bring a smile to Chloe's face, and as Rachel observed their exchange, she noticed the sincerity in his demeanor towards the girl. Chloe radiated joy, and with each smile from her daughter, Rachel sensed a warmth blossoming within her. It felt like the Blake she had first encountered, the conceited and egotistical figure, was gradually disappearing, allowing space for a far more relatable individual. As the day drew to a close and they prepared to make their way home, Chloe succumbed to slumber in the back seat of the car. Blake, steering with a steady hand, turned to Rachel and said, "I realize this is just a single day, and it doesn't undo my past actions, but I truly hope this marks the beginning of something fresh between us." She inhaled deeply, reflecting on all they had endured together. "I can't guarantee it will be simple, Blake, but if you continue like this, perhaps one day I might learn to trust again." He nodded, experiencing a soft sense of relief, akin to a faint glow amidst an extended shadow. He understood that Rachel's path to forgiveness would be a gradual and challenging one. Yet her reply signified that hope still lingered. The ensuing weeks unfolded as a slow journey of rediscovery. Rachel stayed vigilant, yet gradually, her interactions with Blake and Chloe started to bring a sense of brightness into her life. They began to gather consistently, and with each passing day, more of the new identity Blake was working towards came to light. He outlined straightforward plans, discussed the volunteer work he had started with families in the city, and expressed sincere interest in Chloe's school activities. Rachel recognized his dedication to transformation, and that profoundly impacted her feelings. The memory of betrayal and the wager lingered, yet Blake's unwavering actions appeared to slowly ease that hurt. He was transforming into the father Chloe had always longed for, and the man Rachel had dreamed of, even when she believed such a thing was unattainable. At last, on a serene evening, as they sat together in her home, Rachel felt it was the moment to express what she had been keeping inside since the beginning of this renewed opportunity. "Blake," she started, her gaze wavering, "I need you to understand that it still stings. The actions you took with the factory and the wager are not easily erased from memory." He gazed at her quietly, anticipation hanging in the air, his heart weighed down. However, she paused to gather her thoughts. "I sense that you are evolving, and in light of that, I am open to making an effort as well. I simply require your honesty moving forward. I cannot bear the weight of another letdown. I must protect Chloe from experiencing this once more." Blake grasped her hand, a wave of emotion washing over him. "Rachel, I assure you that things will never return to how they once were. I am here for both of you, and that commitment will remain steadfast." She smiled, moved. After an extended period of uncertainty, she finally sensed the possibility of trust returning to her heart. It wasn't complete absolution, yet it marked the beginning, a genuine opportunity for restoration. She understood that challenges lay ahead, yet she was ready to embark on the journey with Blake, believing in the sincerity and determination of the man before her to demonstrate his value. The fresh chapter unfolding between Blake and Rachel was crafted with intention, marked by each dialogue and every gesture of goodwill. As weeks flowed into months, their relationship evolved in a truly authentic way. Rachel clung to a few doubts, yet Blake's genuine gestures, unwavering support, and steady presence gradually fostered her growing trust in him. Chloe, in her own way, had already envisioned Blake as an integral part of her life and made little effort to conceal her affection for him. As time passed, Blake emerged as a dependable father figure for the girl, a constant source of support in all her endeavors. The bond between him and Rachel developed gradually. Blake honored Rachel's boundaries, mindful not to make promises beyond his reach, consistently demonstrating his dedication through his deeds. He committed himself to the support fund for former factory workers, engaged in Chloe's school requirements, and devoted his time to pursuits that infused his life with purpose and significance. His dialogues with Rachel became more profound and sincere, and he ultimately found tranquility in the simplicity he had previously struggled to embrace. On a chilly December evening, Blake welcomed Rachel and Chloe to his home for a Christmas dinner, which had become considerably more humble after the sale of his company. The table was arranged with minimalism in mind, yet the joy and tranquility enveloping the space transformed the gathering into something truly memorable. Chloe, bursting with joy, tore into the first present, her laughter echoing as she dashed around the house, while Blake and Rachel looked on, grinning. Rachel gazed at Blake, the glow of the moment illuminating his features. "These months have been quite pleasant, Blake. I believe we have created something genuine, something I never imagined could come to life." He grinned, gently grasping her hand from across the table. "Rachel, I've never felt such joy before. All that I once believed I required has been transformed by this, by you, by Chloe, by the life we share. I appreciate the opportunity to try again." She let out a soft breath, deeply moved by the weight of his words. "Your journey has demonstrated that transformation can happen, Blake, and I truly believe that today, you are the one who rightfully belongs with us." The evening was filled with conversations about what lies ahead, as they exchanged aspirations and visions for a life that is both uncomplicated and significant. Blake shared his vision for a community project he intended to support, a venture aimed at assisting families in need, drawing inspiration from the insights he had gained from Rachel and Chloe. As the new year dawned, Blake embarked on a significant and unforeseen journey. He made a heartfelt proposal to Rachel, this time with genuine sincerity. He proposed to her in an intimate gathering, enveloped by the warmth of close friends and family, where he vowed, with sincerity, to be the partner and father that Chloe and Rachel truly deserved. As he gazed at Rachel during their vow exchange, Blake realized that this moment was not fueled by pride or rivalry, but by the authentic love he held in his heart. Rachel accepted, a smile breaking through her tears, realizing that after enduring so much pain, she had at last discovered someone who genuinely comprehended and cherished her. She was poised to embark on a fresh journey, liberated from the burdens of yesterday and filled with genuine optimism for what lay ahead. From that point forward, life was defined by fleeting instances of true joy. Blake persevered with his efforts on the community project, while Rachel devoted her time to supporting other women who, much like herself, had encountered challenges. Chloe, enveloped in warmth and security, blossomed into a joyful individual, fully aware that she had a family steadfastly by her side through every challenge. 1 year after their wedding, Rachel and Blake were touched by news that resonated with them profoundly. A new life was on the way. The addition of this new member filled the couple's hearts with even greater happiness. For Blake, it was the awakening of a dream he never knew existed. As he cradled his newborn for the very first time, joy overflowed, and tears cascaded down his cheeks. Rachel, filled with emotion, observed the gentle way he cradled the child, realizing that their family was at last whole. Rachel realized that after enduring so much pain, she was finally embracing the new beginning she had always envisioned for herself, for Chloe, and for the child she now shared with Blake. This fresh existence, founded on honesty and affection, encompassed all her desires, and alongside Blake, she experienced a sense of completeness. Blake clasped her hand gently, a smile spreading across her face. "I appreciate your faith in me, Rachel, and the opportunity you've given me to improve myself." She gazed at him, her smile mirroring his. "Thank you for validating my faith in what I believed." As they strolled side by side, now a cohesive and whole family, Blake realized that the wager, pride, and wealth had been supplanted by something far more precious: genuine love and the promise of a new beginning. Was Rachel justified in forgiving and placing her trust in Blake once more? We invite you to share your insights in the comments. Your perspective is important to us. Your feedback holds great significance for us. If this tale resonated with you, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more captivating stories like this one. I appreciate your time and attention.